Timer's going. Okay.
Hi, my name is Abby Buboltz, and I am one of the registered dietitians here at Holy Family. Today I'm going to be presenting about surviving the holidays, the food aspect of surviving the holidays. So when it comes to healthy eating during the holidays, one of the keys that I want you to keep in mind today is that for each one of you, it will be specific what your holiday eating plan needs to look like. We all know we have certain foods we like and certain triggers around the holiday times for us. So keep in mind today that these are all tips and ideas, and one or a few of them may work for you, but it doesn't have to mean you are overhauling your holiday eating. So the first key is to eat regular meals. One of the inherent feelings that we have when it comes to eating at the holidays is that we save up or we save room for later in the day or later in the week. So I'm actually suggesting that you do the opposite and be a little bit proactive when it comes to eating. Think about when you go a long time without eating, and usually then when we're very, very hungry, we either make poor decisions about what to eat or we make poor choices about what we are eating. So if we make sure that we eat enough ahead of time, especially on those days where we know we have a big meal or a family gathering or some sort of buffet coming up, we'll make much better decisions if we go into those occasions actually being fed versus hungry. This doesn't mean that we have to have a lot to eat. It just means consistent eating meals and snacks leading up until the occasion so that, again, you're not going into it hungry. It also means that we're making good decisions when we're eating at other times of the day, knowing that our meal may be a little bit more high calorie than normal. So one of the keys is actually eating a substantial breakfast, making sure that we start our day off not behind the eight ball with hunger. So this means including both carbohydrates and protein and possibly some healthy fats. But the key here is actually to make sure that we don't forget the protein. A lot of our breakfast type foods are carbohydrate heavy, and so sometimes we forget to actually include protein. So that means things like nuts, hard-boiled eggs, maybe even for some cottage cheese, for others maybe yogurt, but it means including some sort of protein. This will help keep us full as the day goes on and also kind of start us off on the right foot. The other key is to bring along snacks. When you know that you're going to be out of your normal eating pattern, or you know that you may go a long time without eating, especially when we're outside of our pattern and outside of our home or work schedule, sometimes we do go too long without eating. So making sure that we are actually bringing along healthy snacks. And basically this is being proactive with our eating, and planning ahead a little bit can really go a long way if we are traveling or if we're outside of our normal pattern. Some bring along snacks, and these are just a few options. These are some things that travel pretty well for the most part. It is not an all-inclusive list. There's definitely many other options, but these are just a starting point for things that are easy to bring with, or if you happen to stop at a gas station of some sort, pretty easy to grab at a gas station or a grocery store quickly if you are on the go. So again, a lot of these snacks kind of incorporate a combination of carbs and protein. Again, most of the time carbohydrate foods are going to be a little more readily available or easier to bring along, but this is a starting point. So things like nuts or trail mix. As we know, these foods can be high calorie, but in small amounts as a snack to tide you over between meals, these can be a great addition. Things like granola bars can be an option. These are just a few types of granola bar. The gold standard for granola bars would be making your own, but as we know with the holiday season, usually we're a little short on time when it comes to figuring out making our own bars or snacks of some sort. But if you do need to buy some, these are some options that usually have a little bit more fiber. They usually have a little bit more in the way of nuts and seeds. They're going to fill you up a little bit more. Things like string cheese are an option. When it comes to fruit, fruit is very portable. So I did list a few portable options, but certainly the kinds of fruit can really vary depending on your taste. Little cups of applesauce even can be an option. They travel very well. And then sometimes even things like crackers of some sort. Again, you want to pick ones that have a little bit more fiber that are going to fill you up a little bit more. So as I mentioned before, having a plan is really the key. If you have a game plan specific to you, most often we're not going to follow that perfectly, but it at least gives us a starting point and forces us to think through the process of what am I going to have and how am I going to make this fit. So knowing your fellow meal goers, this one is kind of key because as you know, when you go out to eat with certain people, there's certain people in our lives that may always suggest an appetizer, always suggest a drink, maybe always want to split dessert. So kind of know your meal goers and know what you're going to have to plan for and maybe plan into what you're choosing as your meal. It certainly doesn't mean you have to not have things you like. It's just a matter of fitting it in a way that makes sense for you. One of the keys for fitting things in a way that makes sense for you is to read the menu ahead of time. Oftentimes, if we go out to eat and we haven't planned ahead, something looks good or smells good, or someone at our table is ordering something that sounds good, and we pick something spur of the moment. If we check the menu ahead of time and come up with a few options that we think might be better options for us, and you do this when you're not hungry, this actually can help you plan a little bit. Does it mean you're always going to stick to this? Not always, but sometimes it actually can help, especially as we go into the holiday season if we know we're going to be going out to eat a little bit more often than normal. The other thing to do is, if you're able to, or if the nutrition facts are available, is to read labels. And when we read labels, some of the key offenders when it comes to holiday food and holiday eating are, first of all, sugar. Sugar is added to a lot of different foods. Sodium, or salt, is added to a lot of our snack type foods, a lot of our packaged foods, and oftentimes most of our foods when we go out to eat. And then fat content. And when it comes to baked goods and specialty type drinks or special sauces, fats are going to be the key offender for these. Those are kind of the three areas. Each one of you may be looking for something different depending on what your medical history is and what you may be focusing on. The other key when it comes to having a game plan is to prioritize. We all have our favorite holiday foods and beverages, but it means really sticking to, okay, let's say I love pumpkin pie. Maybe at Thanksgiving I'm going to have pumpkin pie, but I'm not going to have the extra dinner roll, or maybe I'm not going to have dinner rolls at all, because those are something I can get any time of year. So it's really prioritizing what your favorites are, figuring out how to include those, and then cutting out the things that maybe we're eating just because they're there. So be honest with yourself what your favorites are and what your priorities are, but know that you can still fit in the foods you like and the drinks you like within reason. It's, a lot of people say, Abby, I'm worried about Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is one meal. Will it make or break your week? Not necessarily. However, if it translates into multiple days, then yes, it can have an impact on what's going on from a blood sugar standpoint, weight standpoint. However, more concerning sometimes is the whole holiday season where we have 1 or 2 days each week where we're having an extra or something that we wouldn't normally have. That does add up over time. So prioritize what's your favorite, figure out how to include those, and then maybe cut out those things that just aren't that appealing or are things you can get any time of year. Now, we don't always have control over what's in front of us when we're eating away from home or away from our usual setting, but most often we do have control over the amount. So being conscious of serving sizes is really important and really key. It allows you to still have tastes and bites and small amounts of foods you like, but at the same time, it doesn't affect that waistline. One of the easiest ways to monitor portions without necessarily bringing your measuring cups to your gatherings is the plate method. So making half of your plate fruits and veggies, a quarter of your plate that's starch, so potatoes, rice, pasta, breads, and the other quarter of your plate protein, so your meats, your cheeses, your eggs. Dairy is an optional thing. Some people choose to drink dairy and some people don't. That's okay. It's more so we're looking at that plate as a whole. If you have diabetes, we'd make that fruit and veggie section all veggies. But generally speaking, if we can make half our plate fruits and veggies, a quarter grain and a quarter protein, it gives you a starting point and a way to kind of frame your meal. If you're at home, 2 ways that you can control portions is portion foods out ahead of time, especially those foods that you know are a trigger for you. So when you have leftovers or when someone sends home goodies with you, portion it out right away so that you aren't tempted to go back to more. And then use smaller utensils, dishes, and cups. This can be an easy way to do less because it still looks like we have a lot when we fill up a small container rather than a large container. Our eyes are very good at tricking us. Usually we don't need as much as we think we do, but if it doesn't look like enough, then typically we're going to take more. If you're dining out, definitely splitting a meal is one way to do less, or ordering an appetizer or like a lighter fare type option, or even going out for lunch instead of supper, where you're going to get smaller portions can be an option. And then, as I mentioned before, know what your triggers are. When it comes to portions, all of us have different foods that might be a trigger for us. If you put a salty, crunchy snack in front of me, that is challenging for me to portion out. For some people, it might be sweets. For some people, it might be beverages. It really just kind of depends on you specifically and what you like to eat. So be aware of those foods that you know you need to portion out in order to not have too much. One way that you can control what type of food is in front of you is to bring a healthy option. So bring something that you know you would be happy to eat, and that's also good for you. It doesn't mean you have to only bring raw veggies, but it maybe means bringing something that's heavy on the fruit or vegetables. One of my favorites to bring is a veggie pizza, where, really it's loaded up with veggies, because at least it's an option with veggies. But there's so many different dishes that have fruits or vegetables, or that can have fruits or veggies added to them. The other thing is when you bring your own dish is you can modify the recipe in a way that maybe is a healthier version. And I have a couple tidbits next for how to modify the recipe, but that would be one other reason to bring, a healthier version. When you're looking for recipes for healthier options, or just to try to get some different ideas, I have listed a couple different options. The first one is Pinterest. If anyone uses Pinterest, recipes is a great option there. Typically, you can type in an ingredient and end up with a variety of recipes for that ingredient, or a few ingredients actually. Another website that's one of my favorites is fruitsandveggiesmorematters.org. This website has lots and lots of information on fruits and veggies, but then also a lot of different recipes as well. The next one is even different food blogs can have quite a few different recipes. When it comes to food blogs, now I'm suggesting to look at these for recipes, not necessarily for nutrition information. It is questionable whether some of the nutrition information on some of these blogs are actually sound nutrition advice. However, recipes definitely can be found on these food blogs because it just gives you some different ideas and maybe some things that you haven't thought of. A couple other places to look for recipes is this website, Million Hearts, recipes at Million Hearts. This website also has quite a few recipes as well, healthy recipes. And then if you're looking for something specific to a medical condition, if you have diabetes, if you have loved ones with diabetes that you're going to be cooking for, if American Heart Association has recipes related to heart healthy foods, such as, when we're worried about cholesterol, when we're worried about low sodium foods. So there are some diet specific websites as well that have plenty of recipes. Even if you're not diabetic or have heart disease, these websites still have some great recipes as well. So just a couple different places to maybe get those creative juices flowing a little bit. So here is a couple different baking substitutions. So as we know, with the holidays comes along baking for many of us. If you are a baker, there are some things that you can do to potentially make the recipe a little bit healthier. Most of our baked goods are going to call for butter or oil or some sort of fat. Applesauce or prune puree or some other fruit purees can be used instead of the butter or oil. If a recipe calls for cream, you can use fat-free half and half or evaporated skim milk as a lower fat alternative. If it calls for eggs, you can use 2 egg whites or eggs. For recipes that call for flour, if it's just looking for plain all-purpose flour, you can use whole wheat. Usually we recommend doing half of the flour as whole wheat. You can experiment with all of it as whole wheat, but sometimes that can change the texture a little bit. So usually, start with half, and then depending on what the food is, you could adjust it. If a recipe calls for sour cream, either using a lower fat version, same thing for cream cheese, a lower fat cream cheese, or plain Greek yogurt actually works great in place of sour cream, and you're getting less of that saturated fat in there and actually more protein if you use the Greek yogurt. And then with sugar, most of the time, most recipes, you can decrease the sugar by half and it doesn't really affect the taste or what's going on as far as the recipe goes. If a recipe does call for sugar, though, you usually can't take out the sugar altogether. So it does usually just need to be decreased, but oftentimes you can decrease it by about half. So when it comes to being proactive, planning ahead, and controlling your appetite, there are a few little things that can help too. First of all, drinking enough water, so staying hydrated. Sometimes we mistake hunger for thirst, and as it gets colder here, sometimes we don't always think about drinking as much water as we should be. Very general rule of thumb is that we should all, for the most part, be trying to get about 3 bottles of water per day. Now, this would be something if your physician has recommended that you have a certain amount of water, that would be a separate situation. So just keep that in mind. This doesn't necessarily mean every single person needs 3 bottles of water, but most of us, in order to get about 60 ounces of water as a baseline, that would be 3 bottles of water. Usually I say do 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, 1 in the evening. Most of the rest of your fluid then may come from other beverages you're drinking. If you're only drinking water, then you may need 1 more, but depends on your height, weight, activity level as well. We do, in order to help control appetite, control weight, is limiting the extras. We're going to talk about the extras in just a minute here, but a lot of times at the holidays, we have appetizers, we have dessert, we have beverages that add up outside of even just the meal itself. A couple other ways to control appetite: adding protein or fiber to meals or snacks. Protein and fiber help fill you up. They help kind of keep you full, and so we don't have those big energy bursts and then that big drop in energy. Kind of helps keep you even, keeps that appetite even throughout the day. Fruits and veggies are great sources of fiber. During the holidays, having fruits and veggies as a snack is kind of a great go-to rule instead of having other snacks, because we're getting those other snacks usually in other ways. Snack ahead of time on things like fruits and veggies, so really be proactive with that. And then another way that you can help keep a rein on the holiday eating is actually write it down. Just take a peek at what you're doing every day. So as I, have mentioned before, keeping accountable is one way for us to really kind of keep tabs on what we're doing. It's hard to remember from day to day what we eat. And although we may have a snack here or there, maybe you don't have a brownie every day, but if you have a brownie one day and a handful of candy another day and maybe a alcoholic drink another day, if you have one little thing each day, that's where that weight just gradually increases, maybe half a pound a week, and then we go through the holiday season and a few months later our weight is up 5 pounds. Sometimes it's just those little extras that really do add up. So in order to keep yourself accountable and keep those little extras to a minimum, writing it down doesn't mean you have to count calories even. It's just writing it down so you can see, what did I all grab today? Were there a lot of extras? Is there something that I could work on as the week goes on? So those little extras and often contain hidden calories. Some of the big offenders during the holidays, I've mentioned a little bit of this, but breads is one of them. So our bread type products are going to have quite a bit of calories. They're usually pretty dense. And so therefore we get a lot of calories from breads or bread products. Condiments, so sauces and gravies, dressings, all of those extras that come with the foods that we're eating. And then beverages, alcoholic or non-alcoholic, many beverages are sugary and therefore contribute to our total calorie amount. And then desserts. So as we approach the holiday season here, usually we have more opportunities for desserts, and we do end up getting quite a bit of calories from some of the desserts. So the extras add up, as I mentioned before. So how do the extras add up? Let's take a little look at numbers. Again, these are averages, and this can vary depending on the type of each of these foods, but it gives you a starting point. So half a cup of olives is 77 calories. Half a cup of mixed nuts is 407 calories. Nuts, although they're a great source of fiber and protein and healthy fats, they still add up from a calorie standpoint. So it's easy to have too much of these and end up with a lot of extra calories. One crescent roll is 100 calories. A cup of potato salad is 277 calories. And that's something that could definitely be made in a healthier version. So instead of the regular mayo, you could use a light mayo. You could definitely change things in some of these to make them a healthier version. If you're an eggnog lover, unfortunately, it's about 342 calories. But if this is a favorite of yours and, again, a priority, have the eggnog, but then, maybe don't have something else that is not as special or as favorite to you. So kind of keep that in mind. And then apple cider, 1 cup, 8 ounces is about 107 calories. 1 tablespoon of butter is 102 calories. You add that to that crescent roll, it's 200 extra calories. And then a piece of cheesecake is about 257 calories. So just a few of the holiday type foods that really can add up over the course of that month or two here. So let's take that a little bit further. So let's say you're at a gathering and you grab a little handful of olives and nuts before the meal, maybe a glass of wine during the meal or again before the meal, and maybe there's really good fudge. You want to try a little piece of fudge, just one piece of fudge, and then you're going to have a dessert, a piece of cheesecake. If we add all these up, you could end up with an extra 700 calories from the extras. That's not including the meal itself. Again, maybe you're not doing all of these, but as you can see, adds up really fast and adds up really easily. Even when we're saying, well, hey, I'm doing okay. That's 700 calories in the course of 5 days. That's a pound. So, as I mentioned, 3,500 calories equals 1 pound. So it's quite hard to gain a pound over the course of a week or a day or a weekend. However, over the course of 1 week or 2 weeks, if you have 250 extra calories every day for 2 weeks, that can be a pound. So, that's where we come through the holiday season and maybe we didn't gain a whole lot of weight, but that's where a few pounds can add on Not only that, if we're out of our normal pattern, sometimes it sets a snowball of events where it's just hard to kind of get back on track. So again, keep in mind, one of the ways to think about it is to try to maintain weight through the holidays. It's certainly doable to lose weight through the holidays, but if that stresses you out more, try to just maintain all the hard work you've done up to this point. If you have been losing weight, isn't necessarily lost over the course of the holidays. However, sometimes some of it can come back on if we're not paying attention. Don't be discouraged if you don't lose. One of the other things is a lot of times people will come see me after a week and say, Abby, I feel like I gained 5 pounds over the weekend. A lot of times some of that is extra salt because as you can see, it'd be really hard to gain 5 pounds from actual calories over the course of a weekend. However, the salt content, sometimes some of us are a little more prone to retaining fluid, and so therefore sometimes it's just the sodium. So pay attention to those high salt foods. A lot of snacky foods, condiments are going to have salt. A lot of our restaurant type foods are going to have salt, and so that's where sometimes it adds up. The other key and the other thing that can kind of help when our food is different over the holidays is keep your regular exercise schedule as best as possible. But then also be creative with exercise. So maybe you don't have time to get 60 minutes of exercise in, and that's what you're used to. Maybe it has to be a 10-minute chunk here and a 20-minute chunk there because of your schedule, but just know that still is better than doing nothing. So get your body moving, work it in a way that is reasonable for you and safe. However, that exercise is that key. If the food part is different, you're going to be eating a little bit more than normal or different things than normal, make sure then you keep that exercise continuous so that you are getting the benefit from the exercise as well. And then, don't let food be the concern. Focus on family and friends. Celebrate being with family and friends. One of the tips that I think is really helpful is focus on the conversation versus the food. Don't stand in the kitchen when you're having your conversation. Go somewhere where you're not looking at that food, where it's not right in front of you, and focus on the actual reason for the holiday season as opposed to just the food part of it. Food can definitely be part of the celebration, and there are family traditions and favorites that we have, but keep your focus on the actual holiday itself, and sometimes that can help too. And then the other thing is do something, so even if it's something different out of your norm, but, instead of, talking over food, take a walk. As the weather gets a little colder and we get some snow, hopefully here not soon, snowshoe or hike, play with the kids in the snow, do something different, take a class, something different to kind of change up the exercise routine as well. So these are just, a couple tips. Again, hopefully there's something that you're able to kind of take away for yourself. You don't all need to do all of these, but again, we all kind of know what our problem foods are or problem areas are during the holiday season. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you for participating today.